Hello, do badders, and welcome to Bad Boy Running. We've got another exciting guest for you. We try and talk to people who are from all aspects of running, and I can't remember now how Mary first cropped up. I think I'd read a Runner's World article or something similar where it was talking about the selection for the Boston Marathon, and particular the elite selection. And I'd realized we'd never actually discussed with anyone who chooses, who actually gets the places on these races, especially that they're paid athletes, they're paid to attend. So who has that power? But not just that, when they arrive, what happens to them? Do they just rock up on the start line and you just got to hope that they got the right tube? Or are they chauffeur driven in from wherever they be in these lovely cruises? So we thought we get Mary to come on and explain the full details and the full gossip behind the runners of the Boston Marathon. So welcome to the podcast, the wonderful Mary Kate Shea.
Hey!
Nice to meet you guys. I don't know how you found me either, but let's go with it.
You've got a lot to live up to here in terms of the stories that David wants from you. So if you want to use any kind of artistic license, that's absolutely fine.
All right. So I'm taking it that every other recruiter in the world turned this opportunity down. Is that where we're going with this? Or it's just a new idea for you guys?
Absolutely. No, no, I think you're the first person we've ever asked to come on who deals with athlete management from the race side of things.
It is a really strange concept, isn't it? Right. But it's even stranger when you think about the Boston Marathon, because for maybe 90 years, people just kind of signed up, showed up, they got a physical check-in, had some beef stew at the end of the race and called it a day. It was done, no big deal. And then John Hancock decided to sponsor the race. This is before there were title sponsors in any marathon. But as part of that sponsorship, the head of the company, he was kind of brilliant. His name is David D'Alessandro. He decided, as part of the sponsorship of the Boston Marathon, just simple Boston Marathon, he was going to own the pro athlete program. So that kind of means that he got to develop what it means to be a pro athlete program. And then that has just evolved over the last 37 years. Their sponsorship is up this year. But, imagine, I don't know what would be comparable in the UK, but Dunkin' Donuts setting the lineup for the Patriots on the Super Bowl. On a way different level, it would be the same as a sponsor setting the lineup, right?
I'm going to be so disappointed watching the Super Bowl this year now. It's not that.
So in the ownership of that program, there was a gentleman, his name was Patrick Lynch, and he started it back in probably 1986. And then I joined in 1999. So I've been doing this for about 24 years with him, and he left in 2012. So it is really an interesting concept, isn't it? And I kind of fell into it, but you do have to be really invested in the sport, passionate about it. You need to be a student of the sport. You need to know who's going to work well together, who has run against each other in the past, what's that history with every single person who lines up. And at Boston, it's not like any other marathon in the world, because, on that morning of race day, I look at that group of 50 men and 50 women, and you look at them and you say, anybody in this room can win this race, because it has happened in the past. Mebka Flesler, when he won in 2014, his PB was a 209. He was like 25th down the list of PBs, and he wins the race. Yuki Kawauchi, 208. He wins the race.
That one was incredible.
So Boston is a unique animal, that's for sure. And putting it together, it's a little bit strategic. It's like chess. We could talk all day on that one, but yeah, back to you.
How did you get involved then? Why were you recruited, or why did you apply?
Okay, let me give you a short story. I don't know. So I always thought I'd be a teacher. And I've always worked after college. My husband was in the military. We got married out of college, went to Germany. I taught for a couple community colleges, came back to the States, was doing some technical writing, came back eventually to Massachusetts, Boston. So I grew up here on the South Shore. And I had pitched a story to the Boston Globe about writing. And this is where is the reason I'm interested in what you guys do, because I pitched a story about Ann Trayson, who back in the day, probably let's see, early 90s. She was the queen of ultra marathon. She was the queen of ultra trail running. She was the queen, hands down. So I pitched a story to the Globe to write about her because she was going to be up in Vermont running an ultra, and I was going to be running the same ultra. And I got turned down because obviously I wasn't the running expert. It was Barbara Heavner, who's an amazing writer. But she said, what I find intriguing is that you're a mother of 4 and you're going to run this 100-miler and you want to write a story about it, but I want to write a story about you. So I guess this is where my negotiating skills, and we were talking too fast, but you guys talk faster than we do. But anyway, negotiating skills came into play because I was like, I'm not really comfortable about you writing about me, but I'll let you write about me if I can write a sidebar in the Globe about the race after it's run. So we eventually got to that place. Anyway, long story short, we became friendly. She introduced me to this opportunity to research and write about the best runners in the world coming to Boston. And that's how it kind of began, and just progressed from there. And when I joined John Hancock back in 99, I said, I want 2 things. I want to be able to run the Boston Marathon, and I want a flexible schedule because I have 4 kids running around, and I want to be their soccer coach, and I want to go to their hockey games and everything else. So I've done a lot of writing in hockey rink parking lots, and so that was the early days. And as the kids got older, the responsibilities became greater. And then 2 years ago, I got traded to the Boston Athletic Association, literally traded like the same day it was in the newspaper. And now I work for the BAA, and I put together their marathon, their half, their 10K, their 5K, their mile. And it's more all in the athlete portion rather than sports sponsorship and marketing, which was more on the Hancock side.
And John,
how long did that take me? Not too long.
No, that was good. So John Hancock, then, for the listeners that don't know the brand, because they're not big in the UK, what did John Hancock actually do then?
Life insurance, financial services. They're like 160 years old company. Now it's owned by Manulife up in Canada. So they originally sponsored the New York City Marathon, the LA Marathon, the Olympics, the Boston Marathon, one of the longest sports sponsorships in history, outside of probably, I don't know, Coca-Cola. I don't know, would have to research it. But as far as in the marathon world, it is one of the longest held sponsorships.
Was there a precedent in anything in terms of a sponsor then being wanted to do it? Where did the idea come from? Because it's a weird thing to just kind of come on.
I know it's brilliant, isn't it? We're going to give you the money, but we're also going to own the program. So what that allowed the company to do, and this is before like naming rights, it's well before how specific sports sponsorship became. So what it allowed for the company was to utilize and make evergreen this athlete team, this cadre of professional athletes, year round. So Matt Keflezighi would go to a fun run in San Francisco. Boom, done. Because he's been contracted to run the marathon. Or so he would get additional appearances out of the athletes, which would benefit and prove value for the sponsorship, creating a full circle.
And actually, you should have read the small print of coming on this podcast, because we own you now, Mary. We've got you for a whole 12 months. So we're going to get you to leave phone messages to our wives.
I pitched this as 15 minutes, right? And you're like, no, 15 minutes.
Well, that's interesting, because what I was going to ask was, I think for a lot of people who aren't involved in a marathon, don't really understand or don't really have any concept, as anyone wouldn't, as to what that looks like during the year in terms of like the intensity, or how far ahead you're planning, how many years ahead you're planning, or everything like. And I suppose with that additional element of having the with the program as well, and having to manage that. I mean, like, what does it like kind of, or did it look? I don't know how much has changed, but what does it kind of look like through the year, from like the point at which the marathons run till the next one? Does it change?
All right, so we've all never seen so much drama over road running in our lives, right? It's a big drama, right? Yeah. It's like at the end of the day, it is a road race, right? So people would say, you do this the whole year round? And I'm like, yeah, we do this the whole year round. So basically the cycle goes like this. Benson Caputo wins the 2021 Boston Marathon. He comes into the recovery room after he does the awards, and then we have family dining in a beautiful separate room for these athletes in this beautiful hotel right at the finish line. And he's sitting there.
How many have family then in that family room, out of interest?
How many? Probably like 60 athletes, and then their accompanying folks, and then about 30 para wheelchair pros. And yeah, so
and most of them bring the family though. It's typical to be like...
No, but see, I'm a mom, so yeah, and the Kiplegat's bringing her 2 kids, and there's always allowances. There's always a few little people around, and a few spouses, and mostly agents and coaches and athletes. This again is a unique model. We try to mimic it after the Olympics, so we're creating that village type atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of giving them a stipend for lunch or dinner, or they're out on the economy by themselves, we cook meals for them, and everybody eats together. So Kipchoge gets to know Shura Katata, and Des Linden gets to chat with Edna Kiplegat.
And if one athlete gets food poisoning, all athletes get food poisoning.
Well, this is another reason, right? This is another reason. We have some control over the food, so I get to pick the menu, and it's a lot of we're digressing so bad here, but anyway, reel me back if you want to. A lot of white food, right? It's rice and potatoes and chapati and naan and chicken and proteins, and it's a beautiful menu. It's amazing food, and the chef is a runner, so he gets it. So it's very specific, and I feel really confident. It has never happened, knock on wood, in my time.
And so then we go back to our athlete they've just won, they've just done the press.
So they're all sitting down after the race. He's had his massage. He's won his trophy, and he's gone into the press room. He's done his press obligations. By that time, I've already checked on everybody, seen who's in recovery, who's in the hospital, who is crossing the finish line. Most of the pros are in. I go into the dining room. I look at Benson. I say, "We'd love you back next year." And then it begins for the next year. So, in Boston, we have a tradition of always inviting, for the most part, the champions to return. And I did tell Kipchoge, one tradition that we've begun is that when you are a champion at Boston, your bib says your first name. If you have not won Boston, your bib doesn't say your first name. So we had mocked up some bibs for Kipchoge because we did a few advanced things with him down in New York City this past fall. And I handed him the Kipchoge bib, which says Kipchoge. And I said, "It's not going to say Iliad until you win." And he just started laughing. But so little traditions like that. But it's evergreen because after April, then I usually get on a plane and I go to London. And you're talking to agents who have had athletes in your event, but also have athletes in London. And you're reviewing the race and the good, bad, and the ugly of what their athletes did there. And then you're setting the softball pitch for, we'd love to have you back. Let's see how the summer goes. If it's a world champs, if it's an Olympics, any race that's happening through the summer and the fall. And then after that, I'll do a major summer event. Last year it was world champs in Eugene.
And just back to that London, are you there as hey, it's Mary from Boston, she's a partner of London, we're part of the 6 majors, great, or are you there sneaking into
spying,
rooms,
espionage,
not knowing,
in a jacket with sunglasses?
I'm just pulling them off the starting
are you
line.
like running alongside them on the course going, look, no one knows I'm here, but here's my number?
Contrary, we learn best practices from other races. So we all make an attempt to go to the other races because you always are learning something, whether it's the height of a bib name, to a timing system, to anything, soup to nuts, whatever you can imagine. We're always learning, always learning. And then it's about relationship building, right? Because say there is an agent who's a stinker and he just is, canceling athletes or not performing or not coming through, you have a hard sit down and say, look, this is how it's going to go. You can either work with us or see you later.
And what is the kind of the push-pull element in terms of like, are there people who are actively trying to get their athletes into Boston at the same time that you're trying to get, is there kind of like a trade-off in terms of what the agents do? Oh, I can let this person go in if you also add this person in, or anything like that?
No, there's not a I'll only give you this person if you take these other 3. I think that's illegal. Is that,
Oh, is
what
it?
is that?
That happens. That happened a lot in TV, but not
No,
contractually, I guess.
it's nice to have training partners. So say there's a training group in Kenya and there's quality athletes there. And you might want to take 2 from that group because you know they work well. But I'm not going to take 2 from that group unless, say, one is a Chicago winner, one's a Tokyo winner, one was a podium at the Olympics, one came up through the ranks in track and field and went to the World Championships or World Cross. Or you have to have a really great resume to even crack the door to come in. Having said that, do we want developing athletes? Sure. Do we want young folks like Daniel do Nascimento, who has a national record for Brazil, took it out hard in the Olympics, gave Kipchoge a wave, took it out hard in New York, collapsed and fell. And do we want him in Boston? Yes,
Yeah.
because isn't that kind of exciting?
Yeah. And well,
So what does he bring? He's like 20 something and he's run the 204 and he's an Olympian. So it's also that diversity of what will create an exciting race. At Boston, what our job is it's about bringing in people who have a performance that's worth the storytelling, but a performance that can match the course. Boston is gritty. It's not fast and flat. We don't have pacers. It's not for everybody. Some people have sat and cried on the side of the road, and these are Olympians. It's not a course for everybody. You have to have some grit. I look to World Cross, I look to cross country runners, I look to difficult courses like Honolulu. Those are part of the factors too, and who you want to bring. Who's going to put it out there? Who's going to give it a shot?
Have you said that to an athlete? Have you sat across them and said, yeah, buddy, it's not for everyone, I'm afraid.
Well, I think my tactic, I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or if this is a successful tactic, but we don't really want you in the race unless you want to be in the race. So you need to have a stake in the game. You need to want to be challenged. You need to want to run without pacers. You need to want to have 4 incredibly difficult hills at mile 20, and then have the last 6 miles killing your calves as you come down into the city. So we want you to be ready for the course.
How do they demonstrate that? Is this like Project Mayhem? How do they demonstrate to you that they have the drive and what they need? Like, what kind of criteria do they need to?
Are they sending in YouTube videos doing these crazy?
Yeah, like what?
Well, interesting. I do know I had the great opportunity to visit Kenya. So I did go to, I don't know if you remember Lorna Kiplagat, the half marathon specialist, amazing athlete. She has a camp there in E10. And I did get to go to a few of the areas where the Kenyans train anyway. I've been all over America, know where those folks train. But you do see there's a new admiration, right? Because they're at altitude. It's not flat. There are so many hills. You see them doing a long run on Tuesday, the track workout on Thursday. You see the environment of where these athletes are training. And in which countries, whether it's Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Kenya, the areas where these people train. So, and then in America, even if it's European runners who are coming over here, where they're training. But Ninka Brinkman, who I think was a guest on your show.
Yeah, we love Ninka.
So she's coming. And the reason
she's going. Oh, cool.
Yeah, she's on our list. The reason she's coming is not only because she's just ran like a 2:22 national record for the Netherlands, but because I'm like, this is super cool. She's an ultra runner. She knows the mountains. She knows the hills. She's all in on this. This is her type of event.
And 2:22.
You know how easy it is to just fall in behind a pacer? Oh, wait a minute. I think you're going to pacer, right, David? To fall in behind a pacer.
He is not easy to fall in behind. I've heard from multiple sources. So
you don't have to. I mean, they've done studies on it, right? You turn off your brain. You just follow in.
Which is what makes it nice in some respects, but not necessarily
nice,
great
but
for
is
racing.
that the sport? Is that the sport, David? Is that the sport?
That is true.
When you were running in Morocco, did you get to turn off your brain, or was it life or death?
I mean, the question is if I ever turn my brain on more than turn it off.
He is his own pacer. He's his own. He sits in and he runs behind him, a projection of himself.
He's like, "Come on, David, let's do it."
Yeah, exactly. Just talks to himself solidly.
I did hear you're supposed to talk to yourself in third person to encourage the motivation.
Oh, is that right? Oh God, that's asking for an ego and a half, isn't it?
Good job, David. You can do this, David.
But David is now banned as a pacer at London Marathon, and they won't tell him why.
Are you surprised?
So...
Are you surprised?
But this is why we got you on, Mary. I want a pace thinker.
It hasn't. The reason I want to know is I don't know whether a file has been passed around like Interpol style between the marathon majors and just saying that.
Isn't there? And the Brits you're so proper, right? Just like have a cup of tea, but you can't screw up. If you screw up, you're probably blacklisted for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think isn't it a very passive aggressive blacklisting in the sense that they just didn't include you on the email or something.
Yeah,
I think that was right. It wasn't even in those.
I don't know.
I've never screwed up pace wise, just in everything else.
I'll try to get some intel for you, but that's I do love the intel. I do. A lot of people will just talk to me, and I think it's like I'm talking to you, right? It's good to be a listener. I have a little sticky on my computer. It's just TL, and that means talk less. So I have to be reminded to talk less because I grew up in a family of 6 brothers and 2 sisters. So you had to put your elbows out and get your words in.
Well, this hour is not the hour to talk less, Mary. We need you talking more. This is you rip up that piece of paper, save it for tomorrow.
Wait, there it is. Talk less.
So then, what is you've mentioned about you're wanting to create an exciting race, but do you have a list of criteria that you're looking for to spread that 50, whether that's a balance between column inches, between race at the front, between storage to capture and inspire? Like what is your criteria, and what is your war chest that you go to war with?
All right, running isn't a battle, but anyway, there's so many words that are used: a running warrior, road warrior. Anyway, I would say I'm a pretty competitive person, so I do have benchmarks. Do you know what I mean? Like, all right, so for the women this year, or for the men this year, okay, we have the Olympic champion, we have several world champions, gold medalists, we have a Tokyo champion, a Berlin champion, a Boston champion, London champion, New York champion, Chicago champion. That's one of my standards.
Beer lovers champion? Beer lovers marathon champion?
Which I can't hear you.
Beer lovers marathon champion. That person can
conquer. Oh no, but in our pro mile, I have the beer mile world champion, Corey Belmore from Canada.
Oh, so Corey's quality. Yeah, brilliant.
Corey's in it. So I get to have some fun with those. Actually, yeah, I did stop to drink a beer once in a marathon in Boston. Only once. I was proud of myself.
It can help. It can certainly help. And in terms
when
of
it's a hot day, yeah. So anyway, so back to me, okay? I'm only kidding. So that star-studded, accomplishment, that's the gold standard. Woo, isn't that amazing? You have all these champions. Defending champions returning, 5 to 10 of those, that's always great, right? And then say like this year, I'm all about, going in, having that depth. So we have 15 men under 207. I don't just do like 6 202 guys. I want this continuity to make it interesting, right? Because if you have 15 guys who have run under 207, there's going to be surprises. And then on the women's side, same thing. I have 16 women under 216 from 18 countries.
Ooh,
but mixed into that are world champs, Boston champs, London champs, New York champs. And then you take a chance like, all right, who did great in Lisbon half? Who did a great job in Valencia? Who really stood out in Paris or Amsterdam or Rotterdam or Nagoya? going through all of that. And then what happened at the World Champs? Who is that 10,000 runner or that 5,000 runner who might want to make that transition? Do you want them to debut in Boston? Or do you want to say, hey, I know you want to debut here, but it's not the race to debut here. Go run another marathon and then come back. And we'll see how it goes.
And what are your hardest issues with creating that? Is it the proximity to London Marathon, or is it other factors that are stopping the athletes from wanting to do Boston?
So what would prevent you from running Boston would be the following. You just not, no, I can't say. What would prevent you from running Boston is that you prefer a flat and fast course.
So I get people you want a PB for another reason. You're trying to edge forward in your overall rankings.
Exactly. Where are you in your progression? So I love that London and Boston are only 1 week apart. And you do see specific type of runners going to London versus coming to Boston. Melissa DeCisa is one of those runners. Boston is his forte. He has the body and the mind to do Boston. If he went to London, would he perform well? Probably, but he's already won here twice and podiumed many times here. Edna Kibble got the same. She's won practically everything, and she just knows how to excel on this course. Des Linden, she came in second to 11 by 2 seconds, and then she won in 2018. She knows how to run this course. So I think we inherently attract different type of runners, and we can just take the Kipchoge example, right? He is such an intelligent student of the sport that he had his progression. Granted, he's been running for 20 years, right? So we've waited a long time to get the guy. But in his mind, what was that golden ticket? It was to break 2 hours. It was to have the world record. It was to win as many races as he could. I think he's won 15 out of his 17 marathons. It was to have that gold standard world record. Why is he coming to Boston now? Because it's good timing and it's good for his career. He can, if he does win, and I'm not making it easy for him because we've got Evans Tibet and Benson Caputo, the best 2 marathoners in the world this year, racing against them, and they both have a lot of experience in Boston. And they're teammates. And they're probably going to team up against Kipchoge and give him a run for his money. I don't know. We could play some bets and see what's going to happen.
What odds would you give him?
But, hold on a second. So when we extended an invitation for him to run probably for 10 years, and first it was the breaking 2, those 2 attempts, then it was 2 Olympics, then it was, he had a multiple year contract with London, and then he had to go back to Berlin. And, this year before Berlin, I was talking to his agent and I said, he's no spring chicken. We have to get him to Boston at some point. It's the most historic race in the world. It's 127 years old. Is he going to leave his legacy without putting his name in that book? And I said, I don't know what's going to happen. And then, a day later, he breaks his own world record again. I'm just like, damn, it's not making this easy. But what was your question, Dave? Sorry.
And what odds would you put on him winning? What percentage?
Kipchoge?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd hate to. I can't voice it. I'm gonna just keep it in my brain.
This could be all part, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is do you like to how far in advance, if you do like to do this, but do you like to stir the pot a little bit? Obviously you do, because you just mentioned the way that you played the agent there, but and you can use this as an opportunity as well to throw some shade on Kipchoge
the agent played me, because after he broke his own world record, he's like, "Hey, MK, how's that for a performance?" And I'm like, "Damn." I guess
you could definitely see how some marathon would actually get Kipchoge there. Don't put him up against competition, so that he can get the victory. Great publicity for the marathon. Helps towards the legacy and stuff like that. But you're not doing it that way. You're like, let's make him really, really work for this one, because
we everybody who doesn't love him, but in presenting the field, it was really important to us that we presented him within the parameters of Kipchoge is in Boston, but guess who else is here? He's going to be racing this guy, this guy, this guy. And these are your champions. This is the top tier. It's not just the Kipchoge show because it's Boston. And it might become the Kipchoge show, but it might also be the CJ Albertson who runs in the front for 17 miles, or the Daniel who runs in front for 17 miles. And then you're seeing who's reeling who in. It's going to be fascinating, I think, to see that strategy, what's going through the mind of Kipchoge and Evans and Benson and Herpasa and Gabriel and Melissa and Shora. All these guys, how are they going to default to the king? Are they going to follow suit? Are they going to run their own race? Are they going to wait till the Newton Hills? Are they going to wait till the last 6 miles? Are they going to make an early move and try to be caught? That's what makes this sport fascinating, right? It comes down to a couple of hours on one day and a lifetime of experience and training for the top athletes in the world.
And with when you're putting together those names, would you say that it's almost known that individual athletes have a market value across any marathon? So would Kipchoge almost be, he's going to cost London that much, the same at Paris, the same at Tokyo, the same, or is every single time you have an athlete potentially coming a negotiation for every race, every year, with every agent?
Correct. The latter.
Oh God, that sounds like work.
Forgive my ignorance, because so in terms of like the because I don't know how this works in terms of like, you know, the kind of the sponsorship widely against different marathons, but do you have like do you have similar budgets against like against London and against the other marathons to work with in terms of doing that, or is that like a real advantage you can have if you can get a bigger budget, or do you need a bigger budget because of different, you know, logistical
and
things?
is that based on TV rights, sponsorship?
Yeah, I would love $2 more million or $3 million. It all depends on how the event is set up. Are you a nonprofit? Are you owned by, so Chicago's owned by the Bank of America, and then the Chicago Event Management Group, Carrie Finkowski's group, puts on the race. Here, Hancock paid for the pro field, and the BAA is the organizer of the race. What will be the next step? I don't know. So it's all set up differently. So
who's got the dollar?
Yeah, but that's like, yeah, who do you have to? Who's got?
Who when they walk in the room, you're like
rolling in it. You go, look at them all bling bling.
All right, so it is a bigger picture than that, right? Say you give somebody $50,000. Is that what you're going to give them? You give them $50,000, they come to your race and they run. Or you're going to give them $50,000. You're going to tell them that their 2-year-old child can come, that they can bring their wife, that you're going to put them up in a beautiful hotel, that they'll have recovery massage throughout the weekend, that they'll have all their meals prepared for them, that they will be catered in a special coach to the starting line, that they will have a special staging area, that they will run this race. They will have a tremendous party at the end, and that we will continue to have a loyalty to them to bring them back year over year if their performance warrants it. Which door do you choose? And which way do you leverage more for the negotiation?
And do you think that is unique to Boston?
I think all of the races do a tremendous job with their professional athlete programs. I think Boston is at the top.
And
that's so non-American to say. The Brits say it all the time. We're the greatest, we're the greatest, we're the greatest. This is not what Americans usually say, but I will give a shout out to the Boston Athletic Association. The teams there are amazing. It's a small but mighty group. Everybody is so invested in these athletes. It's like we take and all throughout the weekend, right? Sunday, I don't allow them to do anything, right? The athletes know that when they come to Boston, it's going to be minimum, no heavy lifting. You're there to race. We take them out to the finish line. They meet all the fans. It's a surprise meet and greets. There's so many extra little touches that the team puts together that I would like to think, and you'll have to have some athletes on your show. You can have Des Linden. Let me pick them for you. So I like to think that we go the extra mile. They come to Boston, they land at Logan, they get picked up by a special group of drivers that we've worked with for years. They come over, we meet them. There's usually a gift in their hotel room. We have a separate massage team.
What's an example of the gift?
Suite. It's really cool.
What's an example of the gift?
Oh, well, they all get an athlete gift. So it could range from luggage to, I think one year we gave watches, or like just different things. This year, I think it's a huge blanket that says, Boston Marathon on it. Those are gifts, or in the past, we've had flowers or fruit or chocolate or, those kind of things.
So if your USP then, in terms of the thing that you differentiate to attract people, is this wraparound experience for the athlete and their family and everything, the implication is that there's some of the other marathons don't do that and are a bit more, let's throw a bit of cash. You're not going to get anything, but have some more cash.
They're classless.
You won't look up, get your own Uber kind of thing. Just here's the cash.
Take the check.
I don't want to see you until you're on the start line type thing. Is that
all,
London?
No, I think all the races do, as I said, remember a couple minutes ago, all the races do a great job with the professional athlete fields. I don't know about some of, I'm just talking about Abbott World Marathon majors. They all do an amazing job with the fields, not only with the open fields, but with the wheelchair fields. It is a world-class experience. It's similar to, even better than the world champs in the Olympics, because you can build this small community of the world's best runners are coming there from many different countries. But we're only talking about, what are we talking about? 60 runners per race. So I do try to spread it out, that, once you fall off a certain tier, if I have $25,000 left, is it better for 5 athletes to come than to give $25,000 to one athlete? Is it better to give those 5 additional athletes the opportunity? So I'm always trying to provide the opportunity. And so that was great about moving over to the Boston Athletic Association, because they used to do the sub-elite and I did the elite, and now I can do all. So now I have 70 men and 70 women, and I can close that gap, and it filters. You get everything to, you get a comp bib, hydration on the course, recovery massage at the very bottom. So the goal for me is to get all 70, more than comp bib, personal hydration. It's how do we help you with your hotel? How do we help you with your travel? How do we get 70 people as opposed to 35 people, something in this sport? It's a very top tier heavy sport, right? You can't really make a living unless you're sponsored by a shoe company and you get appearance fees from races and you win prize awards.
And so if we were to look at, so you've mentioned the bottom, and you just get the comp and some massage and things. If you were to look at the number 1, number 5, number 10, number 20, number 30, 40, 50, what would the different levels be in terms of the provision that you give?
Best, better, good.
But I guess financially, and in terms of a financial package, we won't say Kipchoge explicitly, but let's say not this year, right? Just a random year. How much do you think you could go to for the appearance fee for a really big name, and then down to kind of 10th, 20th, 30th?
If you got a substantial appearance fee and you won first prize, which is $150,000, you'd be in a good position. But yeah, it's an individual contract with the individual, so we don't publicize what the tiers are. And again, it's based on experience, right? What have you done in the last 2 years? What have you done in the last 5 years? What do you bring to the table? And then most of the negotiations, some are with the athletes themselves, but most are with registered athlete representatives with World Athletics. So everybody knows the valuation, and the agents more so than others, because they're working with races around the world. So they kind of know that, all right, at Boston, we may not get this, but we'll get this. At London, we'll get this, but we may not get this. And
okay.
Yeah.
And do you share information like that with your
No,
other marathons? Or
again, Jody, that's illegal. That's called collusion. You can't do that.
what?
Oh, really? Because I'm sure we knew. I'm just going to Google it. I'm sure we knew Mo Farah, London Marathon fee. I'm
Really?
sure that
He
came out.
publicized it? Hmm.
I'm pretty sure. I
Wait,
don't know
now
if
look, you're implicating us in illegal activity here. Now this isn't good at all. Like,
I'm just checking. A few years ago, I thought there were, and maybe it was just rumors of
Oh,
what.
maybe just rumors. Wasn't he getting like $500,000 or something?
Yes, that's the number in my head I had as well. I don't know if that's true,
Yeah.
but that's the
Yeah, but
rumor
even
that.
if it was 500,000, you don't know what that involves. Maybe it was like a 2-year contract for him to run 3 marathons and 2 other events, or maybe there were deductions, or maybe there were incentives that you didn't know about, bonuses or time incentives, or
And do you have in your contracts, because we've seen with the Golden Trail, we've had athletes who've won Series Now, done for doping same year. Do you have clawbacks and things like that? And say a lot of runners are from teams, are running groups. Does that then alter if I was in a certain group and a teammate or two were done for doping, would that affect my value?
I have put agents in the penalty box. Do you know that reference from hockey?
Mm.
Yeah. And then you're put on pause, which means your athletes are put on pause. So we do take it extremely seriously. It's a huge issue in this sport, unfortunately. And yes, it would affect your value, because I may not work with your agent. I may put that on pause until whatever. At Boston,
Mm.
I asked for proof of testing for the last 2 years. We provide our list to the AIU 4 to 6 months in advance. We only work with people who are on the registered testing pool or show that proof of testing, or if they're in the States and say they're a 214, 212, 211 guy, that they're in the USADA pool. So we do our due diligence, absolutely, because we're in the job of risk mitigation. Having said that, will people always cheat in this sport? Yes. When I first started so many years ago, I was completely naive and I thought, nobody cheats in marathon. Why would you cheat in a marathon? Like, that doesn't happen. Yes, and Lance Armstrong broke my heart and then the party was over. Yeah, so it's a real issue, and the burden of proof is only going to get more and more difficult for every athlete.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
wonder,
absolutely.
how do the agents react to that? I had nothing to do with it. Wouldn't I mean, is it how I just want to picture what is the tone of that conversation? What is the how does that kind of work? Is there arguments back to you? Is there how does that work when you kind of put them in the penalty box?
Well, again, you're listening and you're finding as much intel as possible. And we do work, all the majors work with AIU on a number of initiatives. And it's a very, this could be a whole nother podcast, but it is not systemic in East Africa or Europe or America. It's more individual, or a sub-tier doctor who is looking to make money, right? In Russia, it was systemic doping where the government was involved. And that's one of the reasons why Kenya has not been banned from the sport, from world athletics, is because they're diving into the integrity of the cheating, the education of the cheating. For example, this latest round is that there is a certain set of drugs that are allowed out of competition, but not in competition. But you don't know when they'll clear your system. So if you get tested in competition and they haven't cleared your system, you're going to produce a positive test. How do we stop that? So it's either not having it allowed out of competition, or it's educating the athlete that it's not going to just take 3 weeks for the cortisone shot to wear off. It's going to take 6 months for the cortisone shot to wear off. So different things like that. But the agents, for the most part, and there are very few agents in the world, or very few training camps, or very few shoe companies, that the doping issue has affected everybody at every level. And so if you're looking, Jody, for who's responsible, it filters down to everybody's responsible, right? Because it's the sport we're all passionate about and backing and supporting. Your podcast is supporting the sport of running. You know what I mean? You're advocates for the sport. What are you doing about anti-doping? Where do you stop that responsibility line? So it's very frustrating to me. I've lost a lot of sleep over this because it's from a equity and fairness position. And I don't know if you guys dope or not, but from an equity and fair position.
Look at our performance, and
yeah, it would be the most pointless.
It's obviously
exercise.
we're not doping.
Oh God. They take the dope off us. They take the dopes off and go, you're just a bad representative.
Yeah,
of what this
I'm trying to sell this to people. No one believes it works.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Yeah. And then, we all live in an environment. I don't know about you over there, but say a rugby player gets busted for a steroid or something, did they get a slap on the hands and get a 4-game suspension? Here you can get 6 years,
Italy can be like jail for a long time. UK, I think, maybe not now, but it did seem like gridiron was pretty lenient over the years, and you could get 2 or 3 suspensions and not. But I'd say while we are all responsible in some ways, it does seem as if some brands, and I'll call them out. I felt with Nike and their Oregon project that they were very much turning the back on allowing things to happen and not asking questions and not. And so while, and I imagine there are some agents the same some agents I'd imagine will be trying to insist that they have an awareness of their athletes to ensure and protect them. Some would be happy to go, oh, I'm just going out of the room. And I'm never going to ask a question I don't want to hear the answer to. Is that something you hear, like that there are those differences, or is it very hard to actually get a sense? And I realize we're putting you in a really awkward position now because you haven't come to.
No. We took a dark turn here on this.
Yeah.
Especially because most of your listeners have never doped and competed. Thank you, listeners. No, I think it all depends on the case. It's very individual and depends on. There's so many factors. It's just crazy. And in that particular instance you were talking about, did I read the 350-page booklet that came out after the investigation? Yes, I did. Yeah.
Now,
anyway, let's look at the positives.
I was going to say, go on, David. What was you going to?
I was going to move on to kind of to a different subject then. So, like, you've obviously got a huge range of athletes who come, and some of them are friends, some of them have are completely different languages, completely different cultures, some of them are proper competitors who maybe not like each other. How varied is the way you manage each athlete? And we know we always hear about riders for Beyonce or for Mariah Carey or for the 60s. Like, what is it like with athletes?
Only one athlete has really ever asked me for something. This is why I love runners, because they're so low maintenance. It's amazing. Yuki Kawauchi asked me for a room with a tub.
With a tub? Nice. Hot tub or bathtub? Because there's a difference. Okay.
That's amazing.
That's about as green M&M as we get here in the running world. Yeah, it's a very low maintenance group. Some have larger entourages than others, and that just might be a family thing, but very low maintenance. Marathon runners are super chill and super cool.
Of course,
So
you want a little bit of drama in there, don't you? Because like Dave was there alluding to people being competitive and everything. Is there ever an instance where you think, oh, do you know what, I know these two don't really get on that well. It would be good, kind of pairing them up a little bit,
To
putting them in the same
see them
room, turning
together,
the heat up, small room, that kind of thing. Is there any element of kind of like the off the kind of the track, off the road drama
there,
possibly feeding in?
it's so boring. No, there hasn't really been any drama. I don't think anyone, I can't think of anybody. Having said that, there have been civil wars while we're bringing in Ethiopians or Kenyans, or there have been
Ethiopia,
political
and
issues. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of the dining room, right? Is that you bring everybody together to share a meal and share their love for running, and hopefully that rises to the top.
And do you think in those meals, say the meal before the race, can you look around and get a sense of who you think is who's the confident one?
Yes, a couple of things. So, because I've been in betting pools, don't tell my local running club, but I usually win. So we have a massage team, and I'll check in with them. Are there any issues? Check in with the agents, check in with the athletes themselves. You can see them walking around the hotel. You can see them walking to different events. How are they walking? I go out to the Charles River. That's where they do their training for a couple of days before the race. Go out there, take a look at how how their warm-ups are going, how their training's going. So there's a lot of little clues along the way. What are they eating? Are they overeating and not really care about their eating? One year we had a very high energy caffeinated drink, and I saw a bunch of very tiny Ethiopian women taking handfuls of drinks back to their room. They did not perform well. And the next year I did not have that refrigerator with that very high energy drink. Yeah. So
you just think they just didn't understand the implications of it all.
It was a treat. It was amazing, just that's what you want. Yeah. So you do look around, and everybody's pretty transparent because the proof's in the pudding, right? You have to show up in Hopkinton, you get on that starting line, and if you drop off at 2 miles, you weren't being honest.
Have you ever had a situation where you thought, because you said you've obviously got people that have very specifically won things, they're champions, and then you've got kind of like those other ones who are probably a bit more interesting, have a bit of story that you kind of add in there, almost like wild card type things, because then they're going to bring something else to it. Has there ever been a situation where you kind of added one of those there, and then they've kind of turned out really disappointing, or not done the thing that you wanted them to do? You don't have to name any names,
or they've been too wild with the other,
or too wild. That was the thing.
They're just running around
whoa,
like, Jody, my man, look at your trainers. Hey, look at these biceps.
No, I think you do try to bring in, say, someone who has a tremendous half marathon time, and hoping that due to their lack of knowledge of the Boston Marathon course, they might stir the pot in the opening miles, or that first 10K, or that first half, or they might be that unofficial leader of the race. So yeah, there are a few tactics like that, but no one who's gonna, take everyone out partying the night before the race. No.
And how kind of important to Boston do you think it is to have American athletes do well, just for the coverage, for the viewership?
Oh my gosh, we have
involvement
such
in the sport
in America. We have such depth in America. They do drive some of the storytelling, but bringing in our past champions or Olympians, or Boston's a very savvy town. I know you don't think that America knows the sport, but Boston is a very savvy town about running, and the fans of the sport know their stuff, and the media knows their stuff. So yeah, is it great to have Sarah Hall, Des Linden, Emma Bates, Alafine Tulamiak? Yes. Is it great to have Connor Mance? Super excited about this 208 guy. We're really fortunate, right? London has two of our best, Emily Sisson and Kira D'Amato, running over there. So there is a good representation of Americans around in the spring. Yeah, there's interest, but I've had different runners come out and train on the course or make different trips, and there's a lot of interest in them too. I mean, people can't get Edna Kippeldot and Lalisa DeCisa and others. Yeah.
Yeah, true. And in terms of we've almost been, I'm not sure how we feel about how focused it seems websites like Derek Investigates are about people trying to cheat to get their place at Boston. And I think Boston probably has what people want to do Boston like no other race. It seems to capture people's imagination because the fact you have to do the time thing, because all the history. It seems people will go for greater and greater lengths. There's more competition, maybe not competition for places, but loads of people want to do London, but not in the same way as I think Americans want to do Boston. Like, what's your view on how bad it is if someone cheats to get a place? Because it almost seems like it's an immortal crime the way it's reported on by social media and websites like Derek.
Are you trying to tell me something, David? Have you banded our race?
He couldn't pace at London, so he's coming to Boston. Don't ask him how he got there.
I've never done that in Boston, actually. I've done it in many, many races.
Because we would never know. The reason why you didn't band it at Boston, I mean, back in the day when I first started running, you would see a queue, the bandits coming in, and it was what it was. And it would be mostly local folks, and they'd be jumping in and running. And then after the bombing 10 years ago, then people became more aware of the infrastructure of a race. So they were less likely to take advantage of that. And the infrastructure, meaning the police officers along the course, the hydration, the medical, the ambulances, everything that goes into a race, that I don't think people were aware of how many components there are operationally. And then you saw a complete cutoff of the bandit scenario.
Interesting.
The other thing is that with the chip timing now, before, don't forget, the timing systems were so not as advanced as they are now. So you could take someone's bib, make a photocopy, and no one would be the wiser. And as you alluded to, people still do that, but you're going to get caught at some point. And how do I feel about that? I don't think I'm the right person to ask, because I feel privileged to be able to have run so many Boston Marathons. So I know it would take away from the experience or put an extra burden on the first responders.
Has the complexion of people doing Boston changed in any way because of social media? Because the reason that I asked that is that what Dave was talking about the added challenge of getting a qualifier for Boston. It's a perfect social media kind of challenge type thing that you can talk about, you can go on about and stuff, and so it creates an intrigue and a desire to do it that maybe a lot of the other races don't have. And so you probably get a lot of people who maybe, and the same thing happens with a lot of big races, Marathon des Sables, Western State, people want to do all these big races and they feel like they can go from nothing to these races rather than building up to them. Has there been a kind of a change in the in kind of the complexion as a result of that, or has it not really affected it at all? It's just increased the visibility of it beyond that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now it's split probably 80-20 qualifiers to charity runners, and the charity runners have raised, I want to say, over $300 million for local charities. It's one of the biggest fundraising days. One bid is, the average is $11,000 raised. So it does make an incredible impact on the basic operating costs for a lot of nonprofits. Having said that, yeah, I think we need to find ways to make it more accessible to more runners. And I don't know what that means. It's a constant topic of conversation that can we figure out a way to afford more people the experience that is the Boston Marathon?
Yeah, because because from the blogs and the responses I've typically seen, it feels as if the main response I've seen about the charity places is actually a bit resentful of the charity places, which is strange because we're almost used to a huge number of charity places in London, and you get a good for age qualifier, but the number of that is a handful compared to Boston, which is pretty much all the equivalent of a good for age qualifier. So do you think the solution is to not let people repeatedly qualify, to share it around? Because running is becoming more and more popular. People are becoming faster. It's becoming more of a global event. And it's becoming harder and harder to actually get a Boston time. Times are getting quicker. So is that the only real solution, to still allow to have those charity spots as well?
I think it's probably a combination of everything, right? Because it is intriguing. I wouldn't run Boston until I qualified. I said, I'm not going to run until I qualified. There's 100 other marathons in the world, but that was the bar that you set for yourself. And I'm not saying that that's easy for anybody to do by any means, but it is intriguing to a lot of people who will never be able to pace the London Marathon, or, compete beyond high school or college, that this is a goal for a lot of people. And I wouldn't want to take that away either. Some people spend, years trying to get that qualifier. And it's seeking that goal. And maybe that's what's important to a lot of people too. So I think it's probably a combination of all the ideas out there. I don't have the solution though.
Amazing. Well, have you got any other questions, Jody?
No, I wanted to say, I think your model, and I'm looking at this from a purely marketing perspective, your model of and your differentiation of getting everybody in a room basically after the run the marathon, so you can then butter them up to get them to come next year as well. It's just utter genius.
Like, are you asking questions like, can everyone tell me your favorite part of?
Yeah, it's like you've got Boston experience so far, so that they can't.
Can I buy you a drink? Can I buy you
a massage table, and you're getting them to sign up for next year? It's absolutely brilliant. Whereas,
well, I don't know though, because they have just run a marathon, so I don't know if my timing is very good. Actually,
they're weak. They're exhausted. Best time.
Jody, there are more people crying at the end of a marathon than happy, right? And there have been athletes crying in the hallway. It's heartbreaking. It's bittersweet. There are people who are amazingly joyful, and then there are people who are devastated because they're only 2 minutes off their personal best. So it's tough. But I did think you were going to ask me what was the best gift that any athlete has ever given you, but you didn't ask me that question. So I guess you
has ever given you. Oh, I didn't even think they give you gifts.
Wait a minute. How come all the stuff that I've suggested was illegal, but then bribing you is not illegal? I think we need to have like a fundamental changes. What? So
yeah, this is kickback, surely.
Yeah,
are you allowed to...
How is this not?
Do you work for FIFA?
The best gift, and it became a team gift because I wouldn't accept it because I don't want to do anything illegal. So it was for the entire team. But we were gifted an orphaned elephant from a group out of Kenya, and her name.
How did they get it to you?
Well, the elephant stayed in Kenya, but we received her as a gift, and we received pictures, and her well-being was under our part of the gift. Yes.
And what was her name?
She was fed properly.
What was her name?
Malimu, and it means mound because her mom left her on a mound during a drought so that she would be saved. So then she was saved. Yeah.
Wow. And do you get updates each year?
Yes. Yeah.
We need Malimu to come and do the Boston Marathon one year. Come on, that would be incredible. The winner rides in on Malimu.
That would be good.
Oh, think of the press for that. Come on, Mary. Where's your marketing brain? You've got this.
All right. Feel free to edit whatever you want out of this. I don't even know if we talked about anything or everything. I have no idea. Anyway, I'll let you guys go. But thanks so much. It was nice getting to know you. And I hope we can chat sometime in the future in London at a pub somewhere, because you guys do something right.
When you come to London, let us know. We'll be involved in the marathon stuff. my wife and I are going to do Boston at some point. We thought we'd wait until we have kids when we would do a family trip or something like that. But I'll let you know when we're in town, and I'll get an animal you can adopt from the UK as well. Some feral badger or something like that.
Feral badger.
Well, thank you so much, Mary, and good luck with the marathon this year.
All right, keep up the good work. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Well, super fun. We when Mary first emailed, she's like, "Well, we could talk 15 minutes or so." I'm like, "No. You don't know how this works. This is not going to be 15 minutes." It's such a shame that she can't tell us everything that she probably would at the pub, because she can't. I mean, clearly we just want to know what's in the contract. We want to know all the secrets. We want to know, who's paid the most, who's the least, which runner is paid the least for their value, who's got the worst agent, whose agent takes the biggest cut.
Yeah, who always asks for loads and then ends up getting nothing, like hardly anything. Who gets serially disappointed every time, asking for the big bucks.
Yeah,
and I want to know who of the, because there must be kind of a pecking order in terms of the marathon majors. Like Boston must just be like, all right, kids, okay, you can play among yourselves and stuff, and it just going to like Tokyo and stuff like that. We're in charge now. Or and who's badly organized? That's the thing. Like who are badly organized, who make a mess of things, who keep losing athletes,
losing the luggage, the wrong rooms, all that stuff.
If you're having to kettle athletes in a room to making sure that they're not going to get lost, there's got to be issues there, isn't there?
Well, what do better is we're gonna, when she comes to London, we'll take her out, we'll get her drunk, and then we'll record another one with her.
Secretly record it
Absolutely. Well, do better. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, then other episodes that would be good to listen to. Well, Nikki Brinkman, we spoke to her within the last year, where she talked. I don't think she'd done the 222 yet, but maybe she had. She was talking about involvement in Golden Trail and trying to mix trail and road running. We haven't had that many Boston linked episodes. We've spoken to one organization who I can't remember the name of. It wasn't someone Devlin, who they organize for people to be able to donate places for runners in Boston. And that was a great episode. We spoke to Liz McColgan, who may have won Boston. She's won New York. I know that. That's a good episode. Any other ones you can think of, Jody?
Rob Kohler from Global Athlete is worth having a look at if you want to go more into the discussion about doping and everything, which I thought was a nice little tangent we went on there. All of a sudden, it's all laughter. Then all of a sudden, we go into the depths of doping. Just like, what? It's not an ambush, really, Mary. I promise you, it's not an ambush. This isn't our MO.
It's always at the back of our minds.
Yeah, exactly.
And other road marathon ones, we had a really good one with Chris Thompson. We've talked to Jake Smith, he ran a 2:11 on his debut as a pacer, and he's becoming a member of NN Running and what his plans are for the future. And Chris Thompson won the qualifiers for the British Olympic team and was talking about his preparation, his training, and fearing training for marathons. So both really good interviews. But if there's some guests you'd like us to interview in the future, or if there's some positions in organizations or subjects that you'd like us to talk in the same way that we spoke to Mary.
If there's positions in organizations you'd like us to occupy in order to find out, or I think the other thing to ask, if there's a question, if there's something you want to know, like what is the answer to this particular question, we can always go out and try and find the person that might be able to answer that question. So anything that you're thinking about, ultra running, marathons, things like that, questions you've got to ask, or things that you've wondered, or
how
things
does this work?
Interesting.
Why
how
is it
does
like
this
that?
work?
Yeah,
yes.
That type of thing. Yeah, let us know, and we'll go out and we'll find the right people and get them on to interview. Well, that's just it, guys. If you'd love to leave a review, that would be wonderfully generous. If you could use the phrase "my adopted elephant" in the review. Then we'll read it
You were
out.
going there. When she was saying the story, there was a very, very slight pause between orphan and elephant, and I thought they gave us an orphan. Like, oh,
yeah, smell gooder than the hand luggage. But if you leave us a lovely review, it does help us attract guests like Mary and give the credibility that mean that guests probably bigger than should come on the podcast do come on the podcast.
Yeah, if you want to join the conversation, head over to the Facebook group, type in Bad Boy Running Podcast, answer 3 questions you'll get in. I'm amazed after all the time of doing this. People actually said to me, oh, the reason that I joined Bad Boy Running was because, and became part of the group was because of the way that you announce it at the end of not the way you announce it, the fact you announce it. I don't think there's anything particularly special about the way I announce it, but the fact that we announce it at the end of it. So I'm surprised this actually works. I just, do it as a, because I can't think of anything else to contribute. But yeah, if you want to join the conversation, head over to the Facebook group and join in with that. If you want any merch, don't bother at the moment, because I didn't realize that no one was actually picking up all the merch orders. And so people have ordered a load of stuff, and I thought, I didn't realize they weren't coming to me, and I'm the one that's dealing with merch at the moment. So don't order anything until I tell you to start ordering stuff again.
Where were they going?
It out.
Were they straight in the bin? Straight in the...
They are printing out and go straight into a shredder. Thanks for your cash, everyone. No refunds.
If this gets played out in court of small claims court,
I like the amount of
incriminating.
I like the amount of illegalities we got through on this. Everything I was suggesting seemed to be illegal. I'm like, really, that's illegal of everything.
Not in the UK, Mary. Come to the UK. Come and work for London.
Come to the UK,
and you will be minted. The backhand is left, right, and centre.
I was going to say, if you've got that privileged position of being able to have all of the athletes in one place, you can do a direct comparison. It's almost like insider trading, isn't it? So you go straight out to the bookies.
He'll do it for 10. He'll do it for 5. Right. He took me 5. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Fuck you, buddy.